When they think that you're walking, riding, and
know, as has happened, and you've conceded this point in the past, that sometimes that information is going way beyond their friends, and sometimes people have made money off of sharing that information.
Welcome to the sacrificed.
People understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
That culture is missing here. So part of what we're trying to do to achieve those goals is like take really big, audacious points of view on the world and then train ourselves to be patient. And it's really, really hard. The entire society is set up to not be patient anymore. Consumer internet businesses are about exploiting psychology. And that is one where you want to fail fast because, you know, people are unpredictable, and so we want to psychologically figure out how to manipulate you as fast as possible and then give you back that dopamine hit. We did that brilliantly at Facebook. Instagram has done it. WhatsApp has done it. You know, Snapchat has done it. Twitter has done it. So there are great examples. WeChat is doing it. There are great examples of failing fast is the right path to exploiting psychology of mass populations of people. I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this.
Turn it off. That's what I would say. It's hard for young people now because they're hooked. They're addicted. If you don't think you're addicted, and I'm talking about anyone, from the highest to the lowest, if you don't think you're addicted, then see if you can turn it off for a week. It got quiet in here, didn't it? Didn't it get real quiet? It's a tool, so we should use it. God has blessed us with free will. Now it's free will magnified, free will on steroids. You're free to go in any direction you want. It will allow you, and it's not the enemy. It's just a reflection of our own free will. You know? And we all want to be liked, but now we want to be liked by 16 million. And will now some of us do anything to be liked? We used to do anything to be liked, but it was by the person in front of you. Now it's to be liked by 16 million people that you don't know. We have to ask ourselves, what is the long-term, if not the short-term effect of too much information?
So the context was I was at Stanford and the dean asked me to speak to the MBA students. And in it, what I was talking about was, the question was, you know, what do you think the long-term effects of social media in general are? And unfortunately, what happened was, I think it's easy to characterize what I said just as a Facebook-specific thing because I worked there and I was a key part of growing it. The reality of what I was...
Explain what you said at the time.
So what I said was, I think the tools that have been created today are starting to erode the social fabric of how society works. And what I meant by that is the following thing. Today, we live in a world now where it is easy to confuse truth and popularity. And you can use money to amplify whatever you believe and get people to believe that what is popular is now truthful and what is not popular may not be truthful. You know, Joe and I, for example, we've been on the other side of climate for a long time, right? And the reality is now I can take money and I can use that through all of these social media systems that exist to hundreds of millions of people, and I can convince all of Joe's friends and everybody like him of my opinion in very subtle and small ways. And he can do the same to me. We can do that about vaccines. We can do that about gay rights. We can do that about bathroom laws. We can do that about Roy Moore. And so I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we live in a world where this is now possible? And
so it was about that, but just so I understand, was it because I read and watched parts of what you were talking about. Part of it seemed to me about the ability to pay to manipulate people's thoughts. The other seemed to me to be this sort of ADD society with which the sort of liking and everything else has created this sort of feedback loop that you compared to drugs.
We know for a fact that what all of these systems do, every single one, is it exploits our own natural tendencies in human beings to get and want feedback. And that feedback, chemically speaking, is the release of dopamine in your brain. And so what these feedback loops do, and they exist everywhere, in Call of Duty, in other video games, in social networking sites, they get you to react.
When Facebook was getting going, I had these people who would come up to me and they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be. And then they would say, no, I value my real life interactions. I value the moment. I value presence, and I value intimacy. And I would say, well, you're a conscientious objector. That's okay. You don't have to participate, but you know, we'll get you eventually. and like, I don't know if I really understood the consequences of what I was saying, because the unintended consequences of a network when it grows to 1 billion or 2 billion people, and it literally changes your relationship with society, with each other, with you know, it probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You know, it
literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we are in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. You know, my solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I haven't for years. It's created huge tension with my friends, huge tensions in my social circles. If you look at, like, you know, my Facebook feed, I've posted maybe 2 times in 7 years, 3 times, 5 times. It's like it's less than 10. And it's weird. I guess I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed. And so I just tuned it out. But I didn't confront it. And now to see what's happening, it really bums me out. Like, think about, like, there were these examples where there was a hoax in WhatsApp where in some, like, village in India, people were, like, afraid that their kids were going to get kidnapped, etc. And then there were these lynchings that happened as a result, where people were like vigilante running around. They think they found the person, and I mean, seriously? Like, that's what we're dealing with. You know, imagine, like, when you take that to the extreme, where, you know, bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want. It's a really, really bad state of affairs. And we compound the problem, right? We curate our lives around this perceived sense of perfection because we get rewarded in these short-term signals, hearts, likes, thumbs up, and we conflate that with value, and we conflate it with truth. And instead, what it really is fake, brittle popularity. That's short-term, and that leaves you even more, and admit it, vacant and empty before you did it. Because then it forces you into this vicious cycle where you're like, what's the next thing I need to do now? Because I need it back. Think about that compounded by 2 billion people. And then think about how people react then to the perceptions of others. It's really bad. So you're training your brain here, whether you think it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. Acknowledge that these things where you're spending hours a day are rewiring your psychology and physiology in a way that now you have to use to go and figure out how to be productive in the commercial world. So if you don't change this, you are going to get the same behaviors over here. Change this. There's a reason why Steve Jobs was like anti-social media. I am telling you I'm not on these fucking apps. I'm not him by any stretch of the imagination. But I am proactively trying to rewire my brain chemistry to not be short-term focused. I'm telling you they're linked. And I think that if you get too desensitized and you need it over and over and over again, then you become actually detached from the world in which you live.
You become callous, you become crude.
And you live in front of your screen.
But Chamath, let me ask you this, because the thing that I've been so concerned about is Facebook just announcing that you're going to be having some app that you can use when you're 7 to 13. I mean, it's one thing for us to be doing this, but to be hooking your kids on something that you're describing as a dopamine fix at that age, that's crazy.
So look, I think in the case of Facebook specifically, I think they have probably done more than any other company, quite honestly, to try to fix it because of all of the companies, and I've seen them all up close. They're the most, frankly, to be very blunt and honest, the best run and the most technically sophisticated.
But they're also emailing me if I haven't logged onto Facebook for a while saying, hey, did you see the post from so-and-so? Did you see the post from so-and-so? Trying to lure you back in. And again, we can make those decisions as adults, but as children, that is a different...
Well, I think the product, and I don't know it quite honestly in as much detail as I should, but I think the way that that product works, because of privacy laws in the United States, you actually have to get parental permission. The point, though, is, and what you're bringing up is, I think, is the most important thing. We all have never taken a step back and actually asked ourselves, how should we be interacting with these things now, 7 years into it? And what should we be expecting of the internet at large? Look, the reality may be the entire business model of the internet may be fundamentally somewhat broken, right? Because we allow ourselves to get interacted with in ways where we don't necessarily control the medium or the messenger.
And we are not putting up any barriers to ever give yourself any downtime from that either.
Exactly. And so it may mean that we all collectively need to figure out, not just individuals, but also the companies, also governments, quite honestly, how different business models need to exist so that we can actually divorce ourselves from how this stuff is working.
What goes on?
Tonight here, a warning about Facebook and what some believe it's doing to kids. The warning comes from two of the company's earliest executives. Carter Evans is following this.
We kind of knew something bad could happen.
Chamath Palihapitiya, a former Facebook executive once in charge of user growth, now says he has tremendous guilt about the social network he helped build.
We have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works.
And it's influencing the next generation. Studies show 92% of teens go online daily, and 1 in 5 young people regularly wake up in the night to send or check messages on social media.
People need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. Bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want.
He's not the only social media executive blowing the whistle. Former Facebook president Sean Parker recently said the initial goal was to get people hooked.
You're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. The inventors, creators understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
We have to hold the tech industry accountable.
Jim Steyer is founder of Common Sense Media.
They, in many cases, have ignored the consequences, some of the downsides of some of the innovations they brought to our society.
You don't realize it, but you are being programmed. It was unintentional, but now you got to decide how much you're willing to give up.
When Facebook was getting going, I had these people who would come up to me and they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be.
But even if you don't travel abroad or plan on paying $1,000 for a phone, Laura explains your face might already be in a really big database.
Your face tells a lot about you these days. It's just like your fingerprint, especially in the digital world. And Facebook now has the largest digital database for facial recognition in the world. I'm talking bigger than the FBI. 300 million photos are uploaded to the site every day. Just think, every time you post a picture to the social media site, it usually knows who's in the picture with you before you can even tag them. So what does that mean for your personal security? Well, we talked to a former CIA agent who says it could compromise your personal information.
The problem is that when one organization owns all the information, they own your face and they own where you live, they own who your friends are, they have banking data, they have shopping data, they have behavioral characteristics and trends from you. Now, if someone hacks into that one organization, they get access to everything that organization has.
So the best thing for you to do, just cut the facial recognition off, and it's super easy to do. Let me show you. Go up to that drop-down menu on your Facebook page. You'll see settings right here. Go to settings, it'll populate. Go over to timeline and tagging. You see here at the bottom where it says who sees tag suggestions when photos that look like you are uploaded. Just go to edit. See this drop-down right here? Take it off of friends and click no.
Dubai is doing away with security checkpoints next year and will instead use virtual fish to verify your identity. You heard that right. Starting in 2018, travelers at the Dubai International Airport will clear security by walking through a virtual aquarium lined with facial recognition cameras. When a traveler reaches the end of the tunnel, he or she will either be cleared with the message, "Have a nice trip," or a red sign will be displayed to alert security. Officials said that the aquarium projection is more than just an entertaining novelty. Virtual fish swimming around a simulated aquarium encourages people to look around, allowing the facial recognition cameras to capture better quality face scans. The project, which can be seen beginning in 2018 in Terminal 3, is being developed in partnership with Emirates Airline.
From the store, to the bank, to the home.
Okay, Google, what noise does a panda make?
To the airport, biometrics authentication all around us. You are the password. We are talking your fingerprints, your eyes, your voice, those now being used to identify us in all manner of ways.
It's incredibly common these days, especially on flagship devices. If you don't see a fingerprint reader on a phone, someone's going to get upset.
And those fingerprint scanners have been around on phones for years. They're known to be secure. Even the FBI struggled to get into an iPhone belonging to the San Bernardino shooter. Samsung lets you pay for goods using your eyes as your PIN. And Apple's new iPhone X recognizes your face using technology it says even a lifelike model could not fool. The chances of breaking through?
1 in a million.
Which sounds great for convenience.
Being able to use our fingerprints to easily wake up the screen and to get into the phone rather than having to input anything, it's just something that a lot of people just adopt.
But raises the inevitable security concerns. Notably, that is a lot of pretty personal information. So who has access to it, and what could they potentially do with it as well?
It's not all in one place. It's distributed. Some of it's in your device. Some of it's kept in government databases. Some of it is partial. And it has to be put together in order to make a decision.
That's the view of this expert. Welcome to the new normal.
Essentially, biometrics really now filters through everything.
Because it's not quite that black and white.
Computer biometrics does a few extra things, and that is that it actually looks to make sure that you're alive, that the biometric signature, your fingerprint, is really you, and then also sometimes uses context, like, for example, where are you located in GPS. And so by putting that all together, they can get a good idea and high confidence that you are who you are.
Meet Jacob, Mikhail, and Sinjini. Only one of them's getting into this computer. It's not just scanning the face, it wants to see the ears too. They've been working on this here at CSU Fullerton for a while now. It's still a little rough around the edges.
What's the kind of success rate?
We're at 97%.
But they're hoping their 3D scan invention will take off. And here's why.
Both combined provides more security. If I'm an attacker, I want to get a picture of your face. That's pretty easy with Facebook. Now I need to find a picture of your face and your trained ear. That's a little bit harder for me. That's another dimension I need to find.
So the cameras are watching, the electronic ears are listening, whether we like it, whether we trust them or not.
LAX is rolling out some new technology where an eye scan and a fingerprint will now get you through security. The New York-based company is called Clear, and its kiosks are being introduced at airports nationwide. But the technology isn't free. CBS 2's Randy Page is live at LAX to explain. Hi, Randy.
Hi, Pat. That really is the question, because this technology does work well. It'll get you through at least one of the lines here faster, but you have to be willing to pay the cost.
You know the drill. First you show your ID and boarding pass to a TSA agent, then you go through the metal detectors. But what if you could get through that first step quickly? A company called Clear is offering the ability to do just that. You walk up to a Clear kiosk, scan your boarding pass and provide a fingerprint or an eye scan, and you're off to the line for the metal detectors.
In less than a half of a second, we validate who you are, we validate your travel document, and you're into the physical screening process.
It is a service that allows you to skip having to show your boarding pass and ID, but you still have to go through the x-ray machines or metal detectors. The cost, $179 a year. Worth it? Kim Smith says not for that kind of money.
It would not be worth the money to me. No, not for $179 a year.
Dave Burt says, sign me up.
If you're late for a flight, you want to move quick, retina, piece of cake, in and out. I love it. Great idea.
And since you're providing Clear with personal information, including fingerprints and eye scans, what about the potential for identity theft?
It's a fair question, and what I'd say to you is that the integrity of our data, the biometrics of our customers, ultimately is the integrity of our company. We take that very seriously.
First questions, does facial recognition technology work as advertised? USA Today's Ed Baig saying, this is probably the #1 question on people's minds. It certainly was mine, and so far, Apple has passed the test with flying colors. Baig says Face ID worked even when he wore a hat, sunglasses, or both. Baig says the 10 leaves, in his words, a strong first impression. Now, over at The Verge, Nili Patel gave his take. He's a fan of that new display, writing, the iPhone 10 OLED is bright, sharp, vibrant, without verging into parody, and generally a constant pleasure to look at. As for Face ID, Patel says it mostly works great, though sometimes he says it was inconsistent in bright sunlight. However, he still says it's the best iPhone ever made. Remember, a big reason people upgrade their phones is because of better cameras. Mashable's Lance Ulnoff saying, not only are the lenses and image sensors better than ever, but the algorithms backing them are taking mobile photography to new heights.
Today we have a report on the facial recognition boom in China. The technology is used for all sorts of things, like opening doors and even ensuring that everyone using a public bathroom gets the exact same amount of toilet paper. It's hailed as progress, but also poses ethical questions, particularly in a country with 170 million surveillance cameras, and that number is set to more than double in the next few years. Pierre-Philippe Berson sent us this report.
The Temple of Heaven is one of Beijing's most popular tourist spots. Several meters away from it, there's a new attraction, the public restrooms. To get toilet paper, tourists now have to stand facing this facial recognition dispenser. The rule is simple, no more than 3 sheets per person. The machine recognizes individuals trying to get more. Installed last March as a trial, this kind of dispenser could see wide use in the near future. In China, facial recognition isn't limited to just bathrooms. The technology is getting more visible on campus, too. In female dormitories at Beijing Normal University, keys are no longer used. The door automatically opens after a face scanning process. In some months, every building will be equipped with such machines. This hasn't raised any concern among the students.
This is much safer. Unknown individuals can't get in. This is not a science fiction nightmare. This is just progress. Technology makes our life better.
Facial recognition is popping up everywhere in everyday life in China. The sector is booming, over 15% growth per year. Between now and 2020, sales could pass 6 billion euros. The company Face++ is a leader in the Chinese market. This startup is valued at $1 billion, partly because of its groundbreaking innovation in image scanning.
On these screens, you can see that every person in the room is filmed real time. The grid you see here is analyzing my face. Our cameras can now recognize me, even from the side or when my head rotates 30 degrees to the left or right, or 15 degrees up or down.
All employees at the company have given their face prints. Cameras film and record every move. The startup is specifically working on the security sector. The field is flourishing in China right now. There are over 170 million cameras all across the country. By 2020, there will be another 450 million of them.
Now we can convert video surveillance footage into real-time information for the police. Here we can see the exact location where we found a runaway criminal. Other countries, especially the US, have similarly advanced technology, but China is the first one to really implement this.
In an authoritarian country like China, no one publicly criticizes this mass surveillance. The protection of personal data is not really debated. However, one artist was inspired by the omnipresent army of cameras. Xu Bing is a filmmaker. He made this movie, called Dragonfly Eyes, with only surveillance camera footage.
This is Dragonfly.
There are no actors, only anonymous people who are not aware of being filmed. Some people look like each other. Xu Bing was able to form a protagonist and make a plot. Xu Bing downloaded all these materials online. In China, hundreds of websites live stream surveillance video. He has 7,000 hours in total.
We've been working on this project for over a year. Actually, it took us nearly 2 years. And during all that time, we kept downloading and watching surveillance videos. We had about 20 computers in our workshop running 24 hours a day. There were 5 or 6 staff members, sometimes less, sometimes more, but always working full-time.
As a result, the movie looks dark and worrying, and poses questions about mass surveillance.
After watching all these videos, my assistants were more careful when they went out on the streets. This film has a few scary parts. And as we progressed in our work, I felt this anxiety creeping up inside me.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world.
Tonight here, a warning about Facebook and what some believe it's doing to kids. The warning comes from 2 of the company's earliest executives.
We kind of knew something bad could happen.
Chamath Palihapitiya, a former Facebook executive once in charge of user growth, now says he has tremendous guilt about the social network he helped build.
We have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works.
Former Facebook president Sean Parker recently said the initial goal was to get people hooked.
You're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. The inventors, creators understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
People need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. Bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want.
We know that Google is tracking us. We agree to it when we set up our phones. So we wanted to figure out what exactly Google is learning about us throughout the day. So here's what we're going to do. We have 2 identical phones. The only difference between these 2 phones is this one is in airplane mode. Both of the phones lack a SIM card, and they haven't been set up to access any Wi-Fi networks. So for all intents and purposes, these phones have no connection to a data network. We're going to keep them with us throughout the day. And while I travel around D.C., we're going to figure out just what Google is finding out about me.
Our tour around town was a 14-mile journey that lasted more than an hour. The entire time, the phones had no access to the internet.
Oh my goodness.
Not a Wi-Fi connection and not any cellular data service. It almost seemed quaint to assume that Google wouldn't even be able to collect data on me.
Both of our phones, exactly how we left with them. So let's find out what they know. This is our man-in-the-middle device. It's basically a Wi-Fi network that these phones are going to connect to once we turn their Wi-Fi on. It's going to pass data through it on the way to Google, but on the way, we're actually going to get a copy of the same data that Google's going to get. We'll be able to decrypt it and then find out where we've been throughout the day.
Within minutes, the numbers rolled in. The phone that wasn't on airplane mode registered more than 100 locations, 130 activities, and even 152 barometric readings. As soon as it hooked up to our Wi-Fi, it transmitted 300 kilobytes of data straight to Google. The phone even logged our exact locations, tracking us all around town, the Capitol, the hospital, the school, and the cathedral.
Now you may notice what's missing here is the exact route that we took, but it got that data too. It knows when I got out of the car.
The metadata has a time log down to the very second, tracking everything when they think that you're walking, riding, and yes, even getting out of the car.
Okay, so you're thinking, this isn't a big deal. I'll just put my phone in airplane mode. Yeah, we thought of that too. This is the other phone that we had with us that no SIM card also remained in airplane mode the entire time. Let's see what kind of data it captured.
The phone with airplane mode activated actually logged more locations and activities than the other phone, and it also transferred hundreds of kilobytes of data to Google as soon as it was activated.
The only thing that's missing from this map is our stop at the Children's Hospital, but it still knows we were there. There it is. Exiting vehicle, 100% accuracy.
Through complicated user agreements and free software, Google gets users to sign away their privacy for nothing.
The fallout is already hurting Facebook. A billionaire tech entrepreneur Elon Musk deleted his personal page and those for his SpaceX and Tesla car ventures. WikiLeaks editor Julian Assange has also lashed out at the social network on Twitter. Others are rushing to do the same too, with the hashtag #DeleteFacebook trending.
So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device. They're turning to social media. They're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook.
1 billion of us own a smartphone, and we know how addicting it can be. One former Google employee says this is no accident. Indeed, it is by design.
Have you noticed if you ever log into Twitter, as an example? So there's an extra delay that you don't know how long it's going to take. It's between 2 and 3 seconds, where the number of new notifications on Twitter you have. So why is that there? Well, it makes that into what's called a variable schedule reward. It's like a slot machine. So you're playing the slot machine, and there's a time delay, and in that time delay, your anticipation's building, and then you get to see how many notifications I get. And so you become more addicted to checking it again the next time.
It sounds like there's just a lot of sort of trickery going on here.
I call it the race to the bottom of the brainstem to, get people's attention at all costs. Never before in history have 50 mostly male 20 to 35-year-old designers living in California working at 3 tech companies influenced how 1 billion people spend their time.
In a 2009 interview with the longtime CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, who, when asked about all the different ways his company is causing invasions of privacy for hundreds of millions of people around the world, said this. He said, if you're doing something that you don't want other people to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Now, there's all kinds of things to say about that mentality. The first of which is that the people who say that privacy isn't really important, they don't actually believe it. The very same Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, ordered his employees at Google to cease speaking with the online internet magazine CNET after CNET published an article full of personal, private information about Eric Schmidt, which it obtained exclusively through Google searches and using other Google products. This same division can be seen with the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, who in an infamous interview in 2010 pronounced that privacy is no longer a, quote, social norm. Last year, Mark Zuckerberg and his new wife purchased not only their own house, but also all 4 adjacent houses in Palo Alto for a total of $30 million in order to ensure that they enjoyed a zone of privacy that prevented other people from monitoring what they do in their personal lives.
When Facebook was getting going, I had these people who would come up to me and they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be. And then they would say, no, I value my real life interactions. I value the moment. I value presence, and I value intimacy. And I would say, well, you're a conscientious objector. That's okay. You don't have to participate, but, you know, we'll get you eventually. and like, I don't know if I really understood the consequences of what I was saying.
So, before we move off this privacy thing, and can you explain what this instant personalization thing was that you did, and why you did it, and what's the value of it to your users?
Maybe I should take off the hoodie.
Take off the hoodie.
Go ahead.
You want to? You want? Go ahead. Here. Can you get someone?
No,
We're not even yelling at you.
yeah.
Yet.
We're not going to yell at it.
No, of course not. That is a warm hoodie.
Yeah, no, it's a thick hoodie. It's a company hoodie. We print our mission on the inside.
What? Oh my
really?
God, the inside of the hoodie, everybody. Take a moment. What is it? Making the
world more open and connected.
Oh my God, it's like a secret cult. Look at that, making the world open and connected, stream graph platform, and this weird symbol in the middle that is probably for the Illuminati.
The question basically of what information Facebook's collecting, who they're sending it to, and whether they ever asked me in advance my permission to do that. Is that a fair thing for a user of Facebook to expect?
Yes, Senator. I think everyone should have control over how their information is used. And as we've talked about in some of the other questions, I think that is laid out in some of the documents. But more importantly, you want to give people control in the product itself. So the most important way that this happens across our services is that every day people come to our services to choose to share photos or send messages. And every single time they choose to share something, they have a control right there about who they want to share it with. But that level of control is extremely important.
They certainly know within the Facebook pages who their friends are, but they may not know, as has happened, and you've conceded this point in the past, that sometimes that information is going way beyond their friends. And you've conceded this point in the past, that sometimes that information is going way beyond their friends.